Hey, Shawn, thanks for being with us, buddy.
Well, thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it.
So I'm going to cut right to it. I know you haven't always been a realtor, and most of us haven't always been a realtor. I'm always intrigued by who it was we were before, for lack of better words, this happened to us. And what was it that maybe led us to get into this business?
Well, number one, so I started my work career very young. I actually worked in a butcher shop when I was 11 years old, and worked in a butcher shop, and then of course turned that into something else. So I ended up working for another for the butcher shop. Started doing all of their sales for their restaurants and hotels and convention centers and even golf courses that we used to deal with, and I started working with them, and I kind of turned that into my own little career path. So I started as just a general guy working on 11 o'clock or sorry at 11 years old at $4 an hour. I remember exactly what I was getting paid, and when I got my raise to $4.25, I'm like, this is great. But of course, over the years, you want to make a little bit more money than that. So I started turning it into something else. Started working with these other companies once I could at least get my driver's license and go out and drive and go and see them. And then by that point, by about 17, 18 years old, I was doing sales to all of these companies. Did that for a number of years. Put me through most of university, and then decided to get into the restaurant business because one of my customers at the time said, "Hey, Shawn, why don't we open a restaurant?" And I said, I know nothing about restaurants other than here's the meat that you guys are using, and that's it. I said, I want to start from the bottom, work my way up. So I worked in the restaurant business for a few years, did everything from prep cook, line cook, waiter, manager, general manager, bar manager, kitchen manager, did absolutely everything. And then started to have a family. And we had my older son at the time. I was a couple years into the restaurant business, and my wife and him would have to come to the restaurant to see me because I would be working off hours. My wife was a high school teacher, or sorry, an elementary school teacher at the time, and they would come to have dinners. And I'd be like, man, I never see my family. I'll get home at 2 o'clock in the morning. They'll be asleep. They'll leave at 7 o'clock in the morning to drop him at daycare. She would go to work. I would go to work later on, and then the same thing every day. So I started to look at everything out there to say, okay, what could I do? And I think every realtor has thought about this. What am I going to do? I want to create a business for myself that I don't have to listen to anybody. I have unlimited potential, can make my own hours. Oh, well, real estate sounds great. So jumped into real estate. And when my second son was born, he was about 7 months old when I jumped into real estate, took my courses, actually went on employment insurance. I don't know if you guys get that in the States at all, but we get employment insurance up here for parental leave. So my wife went back to school. My little one went to daycare at 6, 7 months old. I wrote my real estate license, got into the business, and sold my first house the day that the unemployment insurance ran out. It was just perfect timing. And it took me a few months, but it was a very interesting run of a few months by the time I got that sale done. That's for sure.
Wow,
Yeah. So that's the quick background.
it's
Very
very
cool.
cool.
So, Shawn, what's your feeling on the materials that we delivered today about putting forward inventory at this time of the year?
Well, you list a last in this business. I think that the trick in this business is very, very simple. You've got to work, and that's what it really comes down to. The more people you're going to talk to, the more people that are going to trust you and know that you care, like you guys were mentioning earlier. That is key. I had a preliminary chat with someone today. It was a referral. Most of my business is repeat and referral business. And this lady was like, "Oh my God, you're so easy to talk to. This is fantastic. I have not sold a house since 1996. So I don't even know where I would start." And I said, "Well, here's what we're going to do." She goes, "I got doctor's appointments next week, and my husband's got doctor's appointment the following week. Okay, we're going to meet on this day, and that's when we're going to chat." And she said, "Fantastic." So you have to meet with people whenever they can meet, and you have to get them to like you and trust you and actually care for them. And I think that that's really the key is if you are genuine in your approach to your clients and prospects, even to other realtors, it's going to come across and that, they're going to know that there's no BS in there.
Very good. So you have a team, Team Zold, and
I do. Team's old. Yeah.
yeah, tell us about that and how that got started and what it's led to today.
Yeah, so Team Sold. So I've been in the business now 20 years. So got in the business 20 years ago. Again, knew nothing about real estate. Probably about, I don't know, 8 or 9 months in. So my first year in the business, I did 23 transactions, was named Rookie of the Year with my company. I actually said to my broker, and she still to this day calls me out on it, when I went in for the interview and I said, okay, all I need to do is make $50,000 a year. If I make $50,000 a year, I'm happy. That's what I was making in the restaurant business. I've got a dog, 2 kids, a wife, and a house. I got to pay for this thing. Like we put 5% down on a house. I had no money at all. I'm like, I just need 50 grand. And after that first year, she's like, she looks at me and she goes, 50 grand, right? I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe not, maybe more than 50 grand. So got in the business, hired my first assistant. I was probably about a year in the business and hired my first assistant who was also a selling agent. So she was a licensed assistant, was absolutely fantastic. She is still actually with our company, not with my team anymore, but she's now a manager with one of our other offices. We've got 1,400 agents within our company. So, there's a lot of agents out there, and she runs one of our other offices now, and we're still in touch to this day. And our kids still call me every once in a while if they need questions on stuff like that. So it's kind of fun when I get those calls. When one of them moved to California, she goes, "I need a mover for California." I'm like, okay, I'll get you a mover for California. Um, so hired my first buyer's agent, I guess we could call it at the time, probably about 6 months after that. So about a year and a half into the business, we created this team. I didn't know anything about a team. I didn't know anything about training. I didn't know anything. I just went out there and worked. And that's all I did. And that gentleman, Merrick, is still with me today. He's our longest serving team member. He's with me almost, it'll be, I think, 18 years. And he just needed some support at the time. He was a part-time realtor at the time, had a full-time job, needed that support, needed to figure out, what do I do? And, we've gone through a number of changes over the years within our team. Right now, we are a team of 6 agents, including myself. One deals with the commercial side of things. Everybody else does residential. And then we've got 2 administrators who, if we didn't have them, we would be totally lost. They run the show for us. And they are absolutely amazing. And it enables me to do things. And I'm sure you'll probably get to this. And Doug already knows my hobbies, but I like to golf. And, in Ontario, we only have a certain amount of time that we can golf because of, bad weather coming in and a little bit of winter. So it enables me to golf. And this year I was able to golf 130 times. So I'm very happy with my team being able to control, everything that they need to. Gives me the freedom to be able to do what I like to do best as well.
So, Shawn, along with that one question, and absolutely amazing, 18 years for a team member, how do you keep people to stay with you that long?
Usually I tie them to the furniture and then they really can't leave. So it's, no, I'm just kidding. Um, I think it's just being fair. I think it's the same thing that you said about, trust and care with your clients. I think it's the same thing with team members. If they trust you and know that you actually care for them, which I think all my team members know, I think at that point, then you get to keep the team members even longer. I think that it took me a long time to figure that out. And our team has gone through ups and downs over the years. The team that we have right now has been almost identical for the last 5 years. We've got one addition that came on a couple of years ago, but everybody else has been here for the 5 years. And, to have that stability around me and know that I can trust every one of my team members to do a deal. That, for example, if I wanted to sell my own house, could I trust every single one of them to sell my house? And the answer is yes. And I think that that's a huge part of what we do. I get calls all the time from other agents to say, will you take me on? Will you take me on? It's a big interview process. I interview them. My admin has to interview them. And then the whole team interviews them. And if you can't get past everybody, then we're not a close knit group that we want to be.
Wow. That's impressive.
I think it's just I think we just like to have fun too. We've got our own office. I've got music playing. We've got our coffee machine. I've got a putting green sitting in my office. We tend to it's very relaxed. I'm a pretty chilled person. This is as dressed up as you'll see me. Actually, I think Doug, you saw me in a sport jacket just because I was cold. But other than that, traditionally, I'm not a high pressure type of person. I'm pretty relaxed, a little bit sarcastic at times. I try to throw humor into absolutely everything if I can, just because a smile usually breaks the ice across the board. So I think that it's just them knowing what we're doing, and we're actually going a couple weeks from now. We're going up to a spa where we're going to go up there for the day, and where there's a thermal spa, and everybody's going to get massages and stuff, just to again thank them for everything that they've done this year too, because they work hard as well.
Yeah, good for you. Very good. So one of the things that you said that really grabbed my attention was you said you were making $50,000 a year in the restaurant business, and your first ambition or your first goal is the way I heard this, was to replace that income. And
Correct.
my
Yeah.
experience has been that when new people come in, if that's where they start, trying to replace what they've already gotten used to, they have a much better chance of succeeding than if they come in and they say, okay, I'm going to make 200 grand, or I'm going to, you know what I'm saying? Because then you can fall so far from that. And really what we're trying to do is just replace the income. So I was tickled to hear you say that. I agree completely. Doug, your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, for sure. It wasn't definitely was my goal to replace my income, but I was the opposite of that. I failed miserably and went downhill like a long ways from my income I was making on the farm. But there's reasons for that too, and but it was a great learning lesson as we went forward. Shawn, if we were to look today at the realtor that you were at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give yourself then that you gave to the audience when I seen you speak at the Royal LePage conference?
That's an interesting question. I think for the most part it is, and I think a lot of new agents always they don't get this, but I think it's be persistent in the right way. I think that sometimes agents can come across as pushy, as salespeople and things like that. I was never like that. That's just not my personality. And as far as I always say is, everybody always laughs because they're like, the amount of work that I get done before some people are even awake it's mind blowing. But I'm a worker. I love working. This is my office. I'm at my office every day, 5 days a week. Yes. Will I leave to go golfing? Will I leave to go see clients and things like that? Yes. I don't work from my couch. I think one of the things that a lot of agents can do, especially because so many try to get into this part time to start, is they're not focused. You have to focus. You have to not micromanage your time, but I find time blocking really works and can give you that opportunity to get the stuff done that you need to get done. Because so many things can get thrown at you throughout the run of a day. And Ralph, like you were saying earlier, people should be doing everything they should do, even during the holidays, to work and try to make sure that if you're not away, then work. But it's really funny that they don't, and they just tune right out and they don't focus on what the goal is. And I would say focus and be positive. I think there's so many people out there that are doom and gloom, and that comes across and it just, you just see it, and it's just a complete downturn for a lot of people. So I think it's be positive, stay focused.
One of the things that you said that I appreciate very much is that you're not a pushy salesperson. Yet there are times when we face a buyer or a seller who, they've got a fixation on something, and somehow we have to find a way to dismantle whatever their thought process is, so that we can somehow slide in, something that's fact, not rumor and gossip. How do you approach having to, really tell someone in your best way, you're so far off base, you're not even close, or something. And we don't use those words, but how do you
Yep.
go about that?
Well, I always bring humor into it. So I always say, guys, look, my crystal ball broke as I was walking into your house, that I can't tell you exactly what you're going to sell for and how long it's going to take you to sell. And of course, that gets a little chuckle. A lot of the things that I do, so during my initial conversation with a client, one of the things that I always do is I'm going to try to figure out their personality profile. We do disc profile. So I try to figure out their disc profile, their personality profile, and things like that. Because what it helps me do is it helps me get aimed with the right information. So, for example, if I have a seller, one of the questions that I always ask a seller, no matter what, it's a first call, first conversation. I say, okay, Mr. Seller, um, tell me about your house. They're going to tell me about the house. And I can already start to tell the way that they're telling me about the house, what these people are like. And then I'm going to say to them, if you were to rank your house on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you wouldn't put your dog in the house, 10 being this is the nicest house you've ever been in your life, where would you rank your house? Question that I always ask them, give me a number. And they said, oh, I don't know what kind of number I can give, but I have a great idea. So they say, all right, I've never seen anybody ever really say it's like less than a 4 or 5. But my house is fine. It's 4 or 5. It's okay. It needs work. It's dated. It's this, it's that, whatever. Okay, they're fine. They're realistic. That's a realistic person. When you get the person that says it's a 7, they're also probably realistic, probably know the market a little bit. They have an idea of what is happening in the market. When you get the guy that says to you, I'm a 15, I said, no, the scale only goes to 10. Right away, what do you know? Number one, you know they're going to have a really high expectation on price. You know that they're going to go through every single thing in the house and say, well, I changed this doorknob, it cost me this much money. I did this, it cost me this much money. So you're going to have to be very, very, very specific when you go in with your package, with your presentation on how you're going to filter that conversation. And I do the same thing with buyers. When we have an initial buyer consult, even though my team is the one working with most of the buyers out there now, I very, very rarely work with buyers. I have that initial conversation and I say, I want to ask key questions to them. What are you looking for? What are your expectations at this price point? Where do you want to be? There was that, I don't know, it was a comedy thing that went out about a year ago that I saw, and it was, meet so and so and so and so. She wants to be close to the city. He wants to be close to the ocean. They both want to be in the city, but and their budget is $400. It doesn't exist. So what I try to do is I try to have that conversation with them first, so they don't have those unrealistic expectations when I actually go in to have that meeting with them. And I just break it down and say, guys, I'm your consultant. I am here to help you through this process. If you want to listen to me, that's great. If you don't want to listen to me, there are a lot of other agents in our market. We've got 78,000 registered real estate agents in the city, registered on the Toronto Real Estate Board. Not even in our province, right? It's in our area. There are 78,000 realtors registered. And I say to them, guys, there's a lot of people out there. You want to go? I can give you the names of, you want 70,000 of them that don't sell any houses? I can more than happy to pass along your information to them. Right. And I'm totally frank with that. And I will say no. I will say no to a buyer. I will say no to a seller. If I am not happy with them, if I think, I always laugh. And, if my phone, which is always on, if my phone rings and I go, ooh, I don't want to talk to that person, they shouldn't be a client of mine. Period. Don't deal with them. It's not worth the time.
So,
Strong.
Shawn, two things for you that you mentioned there, as far as a presentation goes within your organization, and you said that all the people on your team do it. As far as using presentations go, so I'm taking for granted that you have a listing presentation, a buyer presentation that they actually go through with the agents or with the clients on a regular basis. Is that true?
We do, but it's really funny. So I walk in and I've got my normal computer, which is just at the office here. I've got a little Microsoft Surface, and I walk in and I put the Microsoft Surface on the table when I walk in to meet with a client. And typically, what I do is I've got my standardized listing presentation and things like that. And I say to them, I said, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I've got this full PowerPoint presentation. If you guys want to see it, and before I even finish the conversation, they're like, no, 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 we're good. And I said, okay, no problem. The last time I actually physically took out my listing presentation and showed it to somebody, oh, I don't even know when it was. It's got to be at least a year, maybe two, maybe even three. I just start having conversations with them and talk to them about what we do, how we do it, how they were referred to us, how we can help them. And they're typically very, very happy with that. They trust the fact of what I'm saying and what I'm doing. And typically the referral that they have gotten us through is also somebody pretty strong that puts a good word in for us at the beginning.
So would you say though that you're able to do that because you know your presentation inside and out and can do it and rehearse it without actually opening it up? And they are
Correct.
getting probably the majority of your presentation without looking at the computer. Would that be a true
Definitely.
assumption on my part?
100%. Yes, totally.
And so why I bring that up again on the other side is that for the newer agents, they still need to do that. If you hired a brand new agent today that was going to join your team, you wouldn't let them do what you just suggested. Would you agree?
Absolutely not. They have to learn, right? And I think every new agent, I think what you have to do as a new agent today, because it is different than when I started 20 years ago, I think a lot of it is take that first year. And the first year really should be, education. Learn as much as you can possibly learn in order to make you a good realtor. One of the things that I would do, again, I was an office guy. So I had my own office at our company. And what I would do is every single morning, I would have the same routine. I would show up at the office. My broker is the only one at the office before me. And she's a workaholic and she's still in there all the time. I would go in every morning at our old office and I used to park downstairs. I would come up the elevator. I would come out the door. There was a little cafe there. The lady would have an espresso sitting there ready for my broker. I would take the espresso in. I would sit down with my broker and talk for 5 minutes. Just try to get something different, something new. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I would peek my head back in and she'd say, come on in. And I would sit down and I would talk again, 5, 10 minutes, ask her a question of something that had happened during the day there. And I would just soak up that information. And that's really what I wanted to do is get that basis in that first year of what can I do? How can I do it? What is this entire business all about? What are the tips and tricks that she knew as a top producer before she became a broker? And then start to really learn my trade, right? Because some people come into this, they know nothing about real estate and they're, wanting to sell people's, biggest asset. It's a big deal.
Good for you. Yeah. It makes me think a little bit about the music industry. I know when I first started learning instruments, I didn't get. I mean, I was excited, but I didn't get really excited until I could play a song. When like one of our grandsons, in fact, our youngest grandchild, he's taking trombone lessons, and he brought the horn over, and we were playing around and everything, and he's going through all the rudimentary things that his instructor's giving him, which is important. You've got to be able to be disciplined to do that, but I also know that he's wanting to be able to just play something other than scales so that somebody say, oh, you know that song. And it's almost the same with presentations when we think about our careers in real estate. We want to learn everything, but we also want to experience that moment where we get a signature. That's like, okay, I learned the song. I finally got one. So I appreciate what you said, where they really need to learn in the beginning all the fundamentals, all the things that make all the difference in the world, and build this composition, whether it be a piece of music or a listing presentation. And then when it's showtime, you open the page, away you go. And can you get to that place to where you can play without looking at the music? I am telling you today, yes, you can. I don't have to open many charts hardly ever anymore. And I can literally sit with a group of musicians that I've never played with before, and we can just start jamming, and we all seem to know where the other one is going. And it's because of that rudimentary learning early on that we've earned the right to that freedom, for lack of better words. So bravo and props
No,
to
and
you.
I think that's dead on. I think the practice is super important, and I think that, again, learning is the biggest thing. However, what I always say is, to this day, is, but you still have to go out and do it, no matter what. So some people will sit there and they will overeducate and watch 9 million podcasts and read these articles and do this and not have that consistency and the focus and what they should have. At the end of the day, you've got to get out and just do it. I got my real estate license February the 10th, 2023. Okay. And I remember that. Sorry, 2024. And I remember that simply from the fact that it was my son's birthday, my older son's birthday. I went out that day. And it used to be all like we had to wait. Like we would write the exam a couple weeks in advance, and you'd have to wait for the mail, and you'd open the mail and go, "Oh my God, I passed my real estate exam." It wasn't like it is today. And what did I do that first day, February 10th, 2004? I went out and I door knocked. I didn't know anything about real estate. But guess what? The first house that I ever door knocked, I've probably gotten 10 deals from them over the years. They've become fantastic clients of mine and referral partners of mine. She invited me in the house. We had a nice long chat. Then I go to the next house. They want to sell as well. And I just, so I get home that night and I say to my wife, she goes, "How did it go?" And I said, "Don't ever let anybody in the house and tell them your life story." Because I knew mortgage amounts, what they were making, what their husband was making or wife was making. I knew absolutely everything just from going and doing it. So while the preparation is super key, go and talk to people. Let people know you're in real estate. Don't be a secret agent, right?
Good stuff. All right. Well, let's go to open mic. I know we've got people that want to ask you some questions.
Okay, good morning. So we do have a question in the chat, and it is, how would you counter the ask for what have you done in real estate so far? And I'm thinking that person must be fairly new in the business.
One of the things that we used to do, and I had that same question, of course, when I was starting, is you kind of put a little bit of a spin on it. And what you do is you look at your brokerage's stats and you say, this is what we do. This is how long I've been in this. And if you wrote your real estate license a year ago, I don't know how long the process is where you are, but you put a little bit of a spin on it. You say, look, our brokerage is the number one ranked brokerage in this area. We sell X amount of homes for X amount of money more, percentage more, and we're selling them in less time than everybody else. So what you're trying to do is you're taking that spin off of you, and you're actually turning that spin into something positive that your company has to offer. And your company should be able to give you all of those statistics of market share and such like that. If you're with one of the biggest brokerages in your area, I would start with that and say, you've seen our signs everywhere. We've got the largest brokerage around. We've got the best support system around, and you start to build it up from there, rather than them specifically say, well, you personally, how many have you done? I was never asked that in my career, even at the beginning, on how many deals we actually do. I think you just have to spin it the right way, really push your brokerage that you're with, the experience that that brokerage has, and then you can start to go from there on that.
Thank you. And for brand new agents, what would be your top 5 prospecting methods to begin with to get their business off and running?
Top 5 prospecting. All right, let me write these down as I do. Well, talk to people. Yeah, you have to find a way to talk to people. I know there are several people out there that will have very different thought processes on how to meet people, and I think, you know, in the old days there was all the cold calling. How many people today actually sit and cold call? There are several that I know that do it and are very successful by doing their cold calling. Door knocking was a huge win for me. I thought door knocking was absolutely fantastic. I got a lot of my business from door knocking because what I did is I turned that into number 3, which was almost like a geographic farming that I was doing in the neighborhood that I lived. So it was a good opportunity. It was a brand new subdivision. I had a dog and 2 little kids. People would see me walking the dog, pushing the kids in one of those red wagons, all around the neighborhood. So, you know, cold calling, door knocking, a lot of it too, I think, is networking. I think what you want to do is you want to network with like-minded individuals. I was a member of a BNI group. I don't know who here is in a BNI group or has ever heard of a BNI group, but it's a networking organization. And that turned into tons of business for me over the years because it's a group of professionals that want to pass business. You're the only realtor in the entire group. It is difficult to find a BNI group without a realtor because they always make the most money in the group, no matter what. So I think that's also one of the keys is network with the right people. So I think that's 4. Number 5, I would say is network with other realtors. I think, you know, when you're talking to other realtors and you gain their trust, you're going to get referrals. You know, last year, I'm still waiting on my final numbers, but about 45% of my business last year, or this 2024, was from referrals from other realtors. That's huge, right? When we're doing the numbers that we're doing, and we'll be close to $100 million in sales this year, and that much of my business is coming through other realtors, it shows, A, they trust you. It's a much easier sell to the client when they just say to their client, talk to this person, they are the best in this area, here you go. So it's a very, very warm lead. That's a great opportunity and I didn't learn that probably until about 12 or 13 years ago. So I was probably 8 or 9 years in the business to say, I should talk to other realtors. I should go to conferences. I should start to meet people and be genuine about it and let them know that I care and reach out to them and talk to them and things like that as well. I think that's 5, right, Debbie?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
And what are your thoughts on all the online lead generation ads from people on social media, etc.? Is there any validity to that?
How do I be political here? It's a family show, right? I don't want to say anything. We did purchase online leads for a number of years. I think if you are looking to do online leads, you have to know that 98% of them are going to be garbage. And you have to be patient with that 2% that you're going to pay for and potentially convert. Is there money out there to be made in online leads? I'm sure there is. It's really funny because the Canadian market, I don't know how many people on this call are Canadian or American, but in the Canadian side of things, when we've spoken to the companies out there, they all say to us the same thing, is that the leads that are coming in the US are very different than the leads that are coming in Canada, both especially because we're in a big city. I think if you were in a smaller city in Canada, I think they would be very different. But us being in Toronto, again, 78,000 agents, tons of them are looking for online leads. So as you get them down, it really gets watered down as you're starting to go through those systems of what is good, bad, and ugly sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
So,
and what is a common objection you receive from potential seller clients that say to you when you're doing a listing presentation?
Well, I think, Ralph, did you have a quick question before I go into that one?
Oh, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Okay. So sorry, can you repeat that for me, Debbie?
Sorry, it's what is the most common objection that you hear during your listing presentation?
Because most of my leads and businesses repeat and referral, I find I really don't get a ton of objections. The one objection that I seem to have been able to deal with over the years, of course, becomes commission, because everybody says, what can you do for me on commission? We have a couple minutes. I can go through this quick for everybody. Yeah, we're good. Okay. So with commission, what I do is it's a very, very standard thing. And what I do is I take a piece of paper and I draw on that piece of paper and I go like this, and I'll show it to you guys after I draw it. 2.5. And I say to people, look, we have a three-tiered approach to how we sell real estate. And there are three different commission structures. And we do a 5, a 4.5, and a 4% commission structure. So we do us, and then we do co-op. I'm going to show everybody this in a second. Okay, so I don't know if we can see that or not, but what I do is I draw a little chart. And on the chart, let me get my backwards here. So I always say at the very top, it's us and the cooperating agent. So I always say there's usually 2 agents involved. This is what we do. And then I've got a commission structure. So I have a 5, a 4.5, and a 4% commission structure. And then I break it down and say, okay, this is us. Ooh, there we go. This is us here. So at the very top, if it's a traditional sale, meaning another realtor is coming in on the other side, it is a traditional transaction, 2.5% to us, 2.5% to them. We, split it evenly. The next one down from that is a 4.5% commission structure, which in the event that we are helping you purchase a property and we at that point get them to sign a buyer representation agreement with us, then we will lower our end of the commission to 2%, and we will still pay out the 2.5%. The 4% commission very, very, very rarely comes into play because what we say with that is if we bring in our own buyer, we will do it for 4% as long as we are not in competition. Typically, well, number one, less than 1% of all the houses sold in the Greater Toronto area are sold with the same agent. Less than 1%. So you're talking last year, 65,000 transactions, less than 650 homes were sold by the same agent. So I'm not really worried about losing money there. And then what the next conversation is guys, I'm going to be fair, and I use very key words, and Ralph touched on this earlier. I use very key words because it's how you say it as well. So I say, I like to be fair, and Bob referred you over to me, and I'm going to charge you exactly what I charged Bob because I want to be fair and ethical and can't treat one person differently than another person. And that's going to happen when you refer me business. So right away, I'm already getting in their mind that they're going to be referring me business. I already say to them, okay, when you refer me business, it's going to be the same because I'm going to charge them exactly what I am charging you guys. And they understand that as we're having that conversation. And they say, well, I won't tell anybody. And I said, yeah, but ethically, I'll know inside that at that point, I'm not being fair to somebody. And I just can't live with myself if I was to do something like that. And that's really the one complaint. Yeah, you get pricing questions and you get things like that. But that's just being a professional and how to deal with where you want them to end up.
Fantastic.
Any more questions in the chat?
And one more, what does a typical workday entail for you and then also your team members?
So a number of years ago, I joked around with somebody when the Fitbits came out. and they were those little tiny thin little Fitbits. I'm sure we all remember them when they all came out. And I joked around and I said, guys, I want to create something. It's an invention. And they said, okay, what's that? I said, it's called the Work Bit. And what I'd love to do is it tracks, instead of a pedometer, it doesn't track steps and stuff like that. I don't care about that stuff. What it tracks is door knocks, ringing the doorbell, and picking up the phone. And it tracks all of that. And if you're not doing your daily numbers, it shocks you. Nobody really thought it would take off the way that I was hoping it would. I thought that was a great idea. My day, I am very, very anal and driven. I'm the type of person that's up at 5:15, 5:30 in the morning. I was at the gym this morning by 6, got my workout in, got home, walked my dog, came to the office, had a quick meeting with my admin team, then or actually I was on the phone, then I met with my administrator. After that, she came in, I was already on the phone with a client setting up a meeting. And then for me, it's a lot of contact. It's just talking to client, making sure that everything throughout the day is itemized. So I block my time off to know what I have to get done, when I have to get it done. Right now, we're doing a lot of our team planning. We're planning our Christmas gifts. We're planning, all sorts of different things going into 2025. Our team, everybody had to get me their business plan by last week. I have now sat and met with every one of my agents to go through it and then really try to narrow down what the activities are that they should be doing. So I don't control their schedule on a daily basis. What I do suggest is a certain amount of phone calls or door knocking. Two of my agents were out door knocking this morning. One of them walked in just before we started the call here. So I haven't even had a chance to get an update from her on how it went. And then, of course, they're working on deals. They're working on negotiating. They're working on showing buyers properties. That's really what my goal is for them. And for me, it's really just try to stay organized, keep everybody knowing what they should be doing, and then, doing that work myself, and then just reaching out to somebody, just sending them the odd text, the odd phone call, send them an email, just see how things are going. If they like to be reached by email, depends on the client of how they like to be chatted with. And then I start to break it down from there on how often I'm going to talk to them and what I'm going to talk to them about.
Cool. Well, we've got time for one more question. First hand up gets it.
Okay, well, there's one in the chat. So with the above question in mind, but tailored to new agents, aside from knowledge, what should be the priorities day to day? What will it look like?
Well, I think it's create a schedule for yourself. And I think that you should, and I'm not sure if you guys will send out my information to people at the end of this meeting, but I have it's the easiest spreadsheet in the world. It's just broken down to half-hour increments throughout the day, Monday to Sunday. And I showed it when I did a speaking spot in Calgary at our national sales conference, and I called that "Get Shit Done." That was the name of the seminar. And what I always say is time block your day. If you say, okay, I'm going to wake up at this time and I'm going to be in front of a phone at this time, make that your non-negotiable. And if you're going to be sitting there and say, okay, I am not leaving this desk until I get an appointment, and track absolutely everything you do, especially at the beginning, because it's very easy at the end of the day to go, oh, yeah, I did some work today. Okay, it's very easy as a realtor to get lost down social media, to do this. By the way, I'm not a massive social media person, so I don't sit there and just throw reels out all day long. But I think that what you have to do is set those times specifically to call. I think you set a time specifically to listen to a podcast. So let's say you say to yourself, okay, you know what? I want to go for a walk. Put a podcast in, listen to a podcast. Doesn't matter what the podcast is. Find a real estate podcast that you like, that you're happy with. Listen to it. Switch it up every once in a while. Try different people, because you may like this person where I don't like this person, or you may like that guy and I may not like that guy. So, you want to really figure that out. So I think it's A, set aside the time to actually make phone calls. B, make enough phone calls that you're going to get enough contacts. and then be able to track that and talk to somebody who is a mentor, who is a coach, who can help you through the process. So if you say, you know what, I made 50 phone calls today, I spoke to 10 people, and I do that 5 days a week, I'm speaking to 50 people a week, and I am not getting any appointments, maybe what you need to do is you need to record your conversation. So you can, and it's the worst thing to listen to is your own conversation. God, nobody likes to listen to themselves on the phone and what they want to do. But I think what will happen is you will learn what you're not asking or what you're not saying properly. And at the end of the day, when you're doing that, it will help you get those ideas to move forward and say, oh, I could have said that, or why didn't you say this? And maybe you'll learn that for the next time, and then you'll try to do that. So I think a lot of it is the tracking, and go meet somebody for a coffee. If you're brand new, create your center of influence. Let everybody in your center of influence know that you're in real estate. Ask them the question, do you guys have a realtor? It's the easiest question to ask, but it's the hardest question to ask at the same time. Guys, can I be your realtor? I'd love to be that person for you. I can send you all the information of what's selling on your street. And yes, it's all readily available now out there. You can get it at an app. There's so much out there. You have to give that little bit of added value, especially brand new, but show energy and learn. If you can find a mentor, find a team, find somebody you can work with that you trust, that's the biggest key.